band in Trinidad.
Yo!
Yeah. Check. 1, 2, 3, 4.
God damn it!
Hey, bad boy.
You know we crazy.
This is Burdie and this is Barney. And this is not the morning edition. This is actually the Burdie and Barney show.
I don't know why you would even make mention of morning with you, saying that your day starts at 1:45 p.m.
Let's not get into that. I'm a creature of the night. I'm a night crawler.
Creature,
yes. So we have with us another special guest, former Trinidad and Tobago men's national senior team head coach, the Canadian Premier League Coach of the Year, Stephen Hart. How's that for introduction, Coach?
Fine.
All right. How are you going over there?
A little bit bored. Not enough football at this point, but it's always like that in the off season.
All right. Okay. When do you all start training?
We probably won't start until March. Officially, we can't start until March 1st. Everybody has to start at the same time.
That's a prerequisite of the league each season, that you have to start training at the same time?
Yes.
All right, that's interesting. What's the purpose of that?
I think because of the makeup of the country and the different weather situations everywhere, that they just want to make sure that nobody gets a jump on the other teams. So if everybody starts at the same time, you sort of, you're ready to go. Everybody knows what's going on, etc.
Yeah, I got you on that. That's something, that's something that we would overlook here. But as I began to explain, I could understand why. So that nobody, it's not snowing by me and you have good weather, so that you could start training a month before me and that sort of thing. I understand it.
I think Naparima here start training right after the winter break.
Well, the South teams on the whole, Coach Hart comes from one of those teams, so he probably was training long time before as well.
Coach, we go straight to the elephant in the room, Coach. What are you all doing to all those vaccines, Coach, in Canada? What are you all doing to all those vaccines?
I really don't know what they're doing with all the vaccines.
If my granny can't get a shot, Coach, I'm gonna blame you, huh?
Well, I think our province is behind the 8 ball with that one, because we have 1 million people and only 9,000 arrived.
Serious?
No, actually, I'm not sure. I'm just,
That sounds like something out of a Will Smith movie. 9,000 alone.
Coach, tell us the story about how you got in Canada in the first place. Most Trinidad footballers, as we know, move on to the United States on a football scholarship. Did you overshoot the landing strip or something? And
it's funny. I was actually supposed to go to Indiana. Mm-hmm. When I say supposed to, that was the discussion. But I really, I spent the better part of my time in school trying to get out of it, and then to make a decision to come to university was because I already had a job and things were going quite nice. But a player by the name of Jeff Agostini, who played for Bossier Youths, was actually at a university here in Canada, and his mother sent him some newspapers, and he saw where I had just gotten selected to join the camp for the Trinidad team, World Cup qualifying 82. Mm-hmm. And he told the coach, "Hey, I know this guy, I played against this guy." And the coach goes, "Well, get him here." And I ended up here.
So your first job, before you went to university, you were salesman for Lionel Messi. That's correct?
Fleet, yeah, I was in charge of fleet vehicles, not government orders of vehicles, tenders, fleet vehicles, yeah, for Lionel Messi.
So that's just a paperwork?
Well, no, I mean, Wassa will order 10 trucks, and I had to make sure that they get the 10 trucks delivered the way they want them, So,
working. That would be the way they wanted.
And then eventually you're working for a Canadian tire company?
Yeah, well, that was when I was now trying to get my status to live here, and I was allowed to work, and I knew something about cars, so I was what you call a service writer. So you'd bring your car in, and I would, what's the problem, blah blah blah, and pass it on to a mechanic. So yeah, I did that for about maybe a year and a half.
Sounds like a sweet job. I realizing you were doing everything to stay away from football so far.
Yeah, sure, Colin was in automobiles, coach.
Well, no. In the meantime, there was a lot of football in that time period. But you know, in the off season, you weren't allowed to work, so you had to try and hustle somehow. Mm-hmm. You had to eat.
Correct. The age-old problem of footballers who either aren't fully professional or aren't being paid, or are being told that they're professional but not being paid a professional wage. Yeah.
Yeah, as we used to say in Trinidad, we are professionals. We're just waiting to get paid.
So, coach, you didn't take a straight path at all to where you are right now as a football coach. That's for sure. Or even in the sport.
No, in between there was a lot of mercenary football playing, whether it be in the Toronto region or here in the Nova Scotia region, the Halifax region, and mainly that's how you made your money in the summer to attend university or whatever it took at the time. Unfortunately, the North American Soccer League had just crashed when I got up here. So it was a very ethnic-based football league in Toronto at the time that sort of filled that void.
Mm-hmm. Were there any pluses to all these jobs outside of football other than paying rent? Well,
look, the thing is you wanted to stay in football. You had that love for football. You wanted to stay in football. And in the meantime, I think the plus, if I look at it now, was the fact that I had volunteered to coach some youngsters. Mm-hmm. And I was working with some young players, and really and truly, I was just really doing a lot of skill work with them. To say I was coaching them would be a stretch, but I was doing a lot of technical work and that sort of thing with them. And a Romanian professor here, Professor Narabeki, came to me and he said, "Hey, you have a knack for this. Maybe you should go take some coaching courses." And that's where it kind of started.
Interesting. Coach, must have been a sacrifice, all the traveling and so on to see football elsewhere. Obviously, a lot of coaches in Trinidad, I think, don't travel that much. I think it's fair to say that. What advice could you give to local coaches? And we have one here, by the way, Barney. We'll be trying to ship him out soon. As well.
Well, I mean, Barney seems to have some experience with the foreign coaches and stuff. But I think the best experience for me really was the coaching courses is one thing, but once you get a certificate, why do you need 5? I think going into clubs and you know, I went into so many different clubs, and some of them I just went and watched what we were doing. Others I was a guest, and you can be more in depth and ask them some more in depth things. But you know, you have to be very open-minded and you know, recognize that there are a wide variety of ideas and ways to do things out there. Yes, there is a sort of a template, but you really see how clubs put together their teams and what goes into the sort of thinking in the development of not only the team but how you take it through the league, and that was for me eye-opening. And then when I went and visit some other national teams, then you saw something completely different, because it's a different type of football altogether.
Could you explain?
Well, okay, I'll give you an example. You know, when you coach the national team, the majority of national teams around the world, you have less than 10 days to do something. You have 10 days if you're going into a Gold Cup, maybe 14 days. You usually have 4 days, you know, and then you have to wind down the training and you go into game one. Then you have 2 days and a half and you go into game two. So you prepare the team much, much, much differently than you would for a league. Mm-hmm. Right? So that in itself, I mean, when I first came into the national team job, you had to be so precise in what you did. You could not waste time on anything that was, you know, that you might do with a club in terms of the training. You had to be specific, precise, know exactly how you're going to approach the game and get on with it.
Coach, when you're saying precise, how much of that precision in terms of the workload and the progression of the training in that short time period you left up to your fitness people, or was it that you laid out the framework and they adjusted to that? You said you wanted to deal with this, or was it a combination of the two?
We're a team, right? So we sit down, you listen to everybody, you present what you want, you go over, well, you know, certain player played on the Sunday, he flew on the Monday and he comes in on the Tuesday, where another player might have been there on the Sunday, you know, so you have to watch the load of each one of the players. That's very, very important. And then the measuring of the training sessions, exactly, you know, what time you're going to work each session into, what's the temperature going to be, what's the conditions, etc. All of that we try to take into consideration, you know. And of course, if it's a competitive game versus if it's just an exhibition game, right? So
that sounds very scientific, and I know that the game is at that level internationally. My question to you now is, whilst coaching Trinidad and Tobago senior team, were you able to be as precise with those measurements in terms of loads, in terms of
no. No.
So then tell me, how did you go about, and your team go about adjusting and dealing with those gray areas that you didn't have exact information in terms of the heart rate over a certain period, over a certain time, the load that the players carried from one game to the other? How did you manage that?
And before you start answering that, Coach, I must say it sounds like Trinidad and Tobago coaching here is very exciting. Yeah. They're like driving a car blindfold or overtaking around the bend or something like that.
But we get in there. Take your time.
But go ahead, coach.
Yeah, no, look, I don't know how to answer that really. I mean, the thing is we never could get the heart monitors. We forget even GPS. And really and truly, you just started to draw on your experience. I had two experienced people with me in Hudson Charles and Derek King. Of course, I had Burdie, and then I had Tobias, and I had the medical crew. So you were sort of looking at things from an eye, just drawing on your own experiences and their experiences. And the main thing we tried to do was to train and have the rest periods. Because when I first started, and it was the first time this ever happened to me, I had players coming and complaining that we trained too hard, and I almost lost it. That a player is coming and telling you that you're training too hard. But, I knew if I was patient enough, they would get accustomed to it. And I knew also that I was giving them enough rest that really and truly, if they were to be doing the right things, resting the right way and recovering the right way, they'll be fine. And I think it served us pretty well in the Gold Cups, etc.
Okay, I guess you're talking about the 2013 Gold Cup here when you came in just before the tournament, essentially. All right.
No, that was baptism by fire.
Talk about the challenge there. I know you had some players off season, and there's a whole bunch of different moving parts, right?
Wow. Well, that was interesting because I think I had 13 days, if I'm not mistaken, to get the team prepared. And of course, to learn the team and learn everything about the team. And luckily, I had Hudson Charles there and Derek King, but Derek King wasn't so sure about me yet. So, I put something in place. Basically, I said, look, this is how I like to work. This is what I like to do. We'll be working in blocks. So we'd work on the defending, this, that, and the other. But of course, I was learning the players. Yeah. Right? I was learning who is who and what is what. And I tried to have looked at a lot of video of the team as much as I could have. And then when we went, I think, to Florida, I met up with Leo Bean Hacker. And, I showed him my plan, and he asked me about he knew some of the players, of course, and he asked me about some of the other players, and he was a little bit shocked that we didn't have at least 2 exhibition games going into the tournament. But anyway, we sort of got through it. We played one little game that I managed to scrape up against a team. And it didn't go well at all, It didn't go well, and then we went straight into the Gold Cup. So it was, as I say, baptism by fire.
What was the problem in that game, and what did it show you, and what were the concerns?
Well, we had worked extensively on the block, on the block and how it moves and how we were going to recover the ball. And at the time, I wanted to play a 4-3-3 because I felt it would get the best out of I'll get the best sort of players. I'm using the word best, but I'll get the best players on the, as much of them as possible on the field. Right? But then I went to Leo after the exhibition game, and I said they just don't get it. They just don't get it. There was way too much running. They weren't holding the positional shape well. So I just sort of simplified it and went back to a 4-2-3-1 where the players looked a lot more sort of comfortable. But we played the little exhibition game in a 4-3-3, and players were all over the shop. They were running everywhere, you know.
Touching on that game, you said you played in a 4-3-3. In the defensive side of the game, did you remain in the same shape in a 4-3-3 as well, or you defended in another shape, probably a 4-4-2 or 4-1-4-1 or something like that? Or
yeah, we worked on that. We worked on a deep block. If we were under pressure, this is what we do. You know, we worked in a mid block. Because when I looked at the times we were playing, the temperatures, etc., I didn't think, you know, I had enough time to work on the pressing part of things. So yeah, we dropped into a if I remember correctly, sort of a 4-4-2 or 4-1-4-1 at times. But we hardly use that. We more dropped into a sort of 4-4-2 shape.
Right. Pressing has been the rave recently, Coach. How much time do you need? What stuff do you need to do an effective press as a team, really?
I thought we pressed well in the 2015 Gold Cup. The lines moved well. We pressed well. Of course, there were some games where, you know, we didn't do it well, but that happens because the thing is with pressing is if one or two players don't step up, you're in trouble. But you need time. You need a fair amount of time. But I thought in 2015, how we pressed Guatemala was one of the best I had seen. But we were kind of lucky because we did it well in the Caribbean Cup as well in Trinidad.
What was it like to work with Leo Benaka?
Leo was very good, very, very good. You could see he took his time. He was analyzing me, you know, and I went to him early and I said, look, because he said to me, I am here if you need me, but if you don't need me, just tell me and I'll move into the shadows, right? But you know, I said, well, you know, this is going to be very difficult because, of course, of who you are and your relationship with certain players. It's going to be difficult because they're going to probably come to you before they come to me. He goes, I'll take care of that in typical Leo fashion. So he watched a couple of sessions and he came to me and he said, okay, fine. I understand what you're trying to do. I know what you're trying to do. He asked some specific questions. How are you going to get this player to join with this one? And who, you know, he asked some specific questions. I told him the plan. I said, I'm not going to modify the training in any way where they spend more time learning on what I want to do. And he was fine with that up until the game before the Honduras game, because we lost, we tied the El Salvador game, and I thought we should have come away with a result on that, a winning result, I should say. And then I thought we played better against Haiti, but we lost, right? And well then. You know, then the threads on the things were fire. Stephen Hart thread had kicked up everywhere.
So Wyatt was very respectful and patient.
You know what? To be honest, I didn't read it. So, but yeah, then we were going into the Honduras game, and I went to him and I said, you know, I think I'm going to make five or six changes to the squad. And he goes, you're crazy. And I said, look, I think the players have given me everything. We need to win this game. I don't see a big difference in the level of the players, but at least some of these players would be fresh, and well, the rest is history. And then he came in the dressing room, and he was so happy we won the game. It was unbelievable.
How much of this job is sales, coach? You know, you started off in sales. You're telling somebody you're fully loaded here because you're trying to convince the players now, do or die. You know, a lot of uncertainty still about you only in the second game. You know, what was it like facing in the dressing room?
No, you know, I can't remember that much, but I remember going in the dressing room after the Haiti game, and I seldom talk after a game. Nobody wants to listen to you at that point anyway. But I remember we had a meeting, and I said to the players, you know, you can't have bad days. You know, you can have trying days, yes, you know, and I gave them this whole talk about, you know, if you're going for heart surgery, you didn't want to hear that your surgeon is having a bad day, you know, or your pilot is he lands the plane only 75% of the time in a plane that you're flying, you know. Yeah. So you're going to have trying days, but all I'm going to ask you to do is to give your best, you know. And I think that was the turnaround in the squad.
Coach,
you know,
yeah. When you're with a new team, players are always assessing their coaches. At what point in time into the job did you believe you won the respect of the players in terms of, yeah, this coach knows what he's doing? Because players are always trying to assess the coaches. They're always looking to see if the coach really understands what he's doing or if he's winging it. So at what point, being a new coach, did you think that the Trinidad players bought into you?
It's very hard to say. I would probably say was after the Mexico game. When we played the Mexico game.
The fall draw?
No. The Mexico game in that Gold Cup.
Right, lost 1-0. All right.
Yeah, I think after how we planned to play them, how we went about it, how we, you know, I think they scored in the 84th minute or something. I think the players were at a point, at that point, they just beat Honduras. They lost on a heartbreak sort of goal to Mexico. But I think at that point, they felt we could turn this whole program around.
Okay. I remember that quote you gave, I think it was during the competition, when people were questioning exactly how Trini are you after that long stay in Canada. And
I think you said that actually.
People, coach, people.
Okay.
And the response was, Barney laughing. Your response was, if a cat climbs into an oven,
if it's bread,
and it makes kittens, you don't call it bread, coach. You had a Calypso stage name back in the day, coach. I know Carmona was Lord Pussyfoot, coach.
Oh, Lord. I forgot about that.
But
the funny thing, Lazana, is I used to come home almost every year for almost a month, you know. But I spent most of my time in Tobago. Mm-hmm. So it was kind of amusing when people were on this huge, you know, Canada thing.
Mm-hmm. People, yeah. I like how the 2-year-old dancing around this people.
Well, I already call him out. You see, the same people.
Man, you have some assistants here. Coach, what brought you back to Trinidad to coach in the first place? You know, things were going too well in Canada. You wanted to experience life not getting paid.
A matter of fact, Coach, before you answer that question, and it dovetails into it as well, why would I be coaching Canada under 17 team or youth team and be wanting to apply for a job in Trinidad and Tobago, what was it? Is the salary that you were seeing? The early payment of coaches?
Bacon Shark?
No snow?
No, well, first to begin, I had finished coaching with Canada. I went with the Canadian under-17 team to Panama as to help them with the scouting, etc. And that team qualified for the World Cup, the FIFA World Cup. And while I was there, I had some offers in different places, but deep down, I always wanted the opportunity to contribute something back home and coach Trinidad and Tobago team. I mean, I think any coach from their home country would love to coach their home country. And basically, I had a meeting in Panama with Sheldon Phillips, and he asked me about if I was interested, and how the discussion went was I said, well, first to begin, you have a coach in place, so I don't want to discuss me coming to coach the team until you all make a decision one way or the other. But coaching Trinidad and Tobago is definitely something I would listen to, and that's how it began. Actually, that's how the talk began.
Okay, I don't know if you know Coach Barney as well. Was a national youth coach too, just last year. I think he has an excellent record. Didn't lose a game.
Didn't win one and didn't play any either.
As soon as we made him Trinidad coach, Mr. Hart, the world went crazy. There was the pandemic outbreak. FIFA stormed the Capitol building, essentially, over here, But two national coaches in this podcast is what I'm saying, essentially, Coach.
I think there's one national coach. And one was hired but never coached.
Okay. Coach, what are the big points, really, of your coaching career would be Kenwin Jones. He is a player before, definitely a Premier League player. I believe he's our last Premier League player as well. And we had never really seen the best out of him until you came. Tell us about that challenge for you. And in fact, just before that Gold Cup, I remember we played in South America, a practice game or two under the previous coaches, and Kenwin wasn't even a starter. Talk about turning him essentially into the team leader as you did.
I had some discussions with Kenwin in Crown Plaza about him taking a sort of leadership role and basically I said to him, I have confidence in you that really and truly I think you could be a big part of the team, etc., etc. And I think it's just somebody showing confidence in him. I never really understood all the criticism. I never understood all the criticism of Stern John. But yeah, and Kenwin, he responded to that.
Mm-hmm. Explain how you used them tactically and so on.
Well, it wasn't just about Kenwin. It was for me to try and find more space for Molino, more space for Jovain in particular, who I thought was very, very talented, wasted at left back, and I wanted to move him further forward. But I would have to find or create the situations where we could isolate him one-on-one and let him do his thing, And but I knew once you have Kenwin in there and you have wingers that can penetrate and make things happen, teams are going to basically pull their two centre backs together to try and contain Kenwin, which is after the US game, Jurgen Klinsmann came to me and we had a quick chat, and he said, not only did he pull the two centre backs together, he pulled back Johnson. So he had three people sort of trying to cut off any sort of play to Kenwyn. And once you do that, then your wide players get more space. And Jovain was scoring goals, and even Cato got on the score sheet when he played the wide right position, etc., etc. But I don't think many people understood Kenwyn's role.
You see, the thing about Kenwyn with Trinidadians, and I believe it's the same thing with Stern. Trinidadians have this ideal in their heads of what a Trinidadian player is. And once it's not somebody who is low to the ground, quick dribbling, it's not their type of player. And I don't think we are mature enough. Or do you think we are mature enough as a country in terms of football maturity and intelligence to understand that what a Kenwyn Jones on your squad brings to your team, or Stern John? I think from my position, I think that we as a country we're not as mature in the football knowledge. What do you think about that?
Well, we know what we like, okay, and it's difficult when you have a certain you look for certain things in a player, but really and truly, the tactical. The tactical side of the game and how players are used is I mean, when I was growing up in Trinidad, it really was not a big thing at all. But really and truly, you have to let me put it to you this way. I was at the Oval once. They have this tournament that they play there, and seven-a-side.
Yeah, Coach. I don't think there's any need for you to bring up how you were dazzled by my skill that night. That I was thinking about giving a recall and I turn it down. But if you want to, go ahead. Tell them.
I don't think I remember.
No. He could. Go ahead, Stephen. You tell them.
But you get the classic person coming up to you and saying, nothing personal, and they start talking about your job and the team you're playing, and it's you ask the person, they say nothing personal, but why are you playing Kenwyn Jones? And the player, the person has no idea about coaching, really very little idea about football. And they say to you, you say to them, what's your profession? And they say, well, I'm a doctor. And I said, well, I watch a few episodes of Grey's Anatomy, but that don't mean I could, perform surgery. But the basic, why you play Kenwyn Jones? Why you play? So I said, okay, fine. To indulge you, who should I play? And then they would say something to me like, we really don't know the players in Trinidad and Tobago, So, they're asking you a question as to why you're not playing somebody, why are you playing somebody, but they have no solutions. The bottom line is that a national team, you can't go out and buy players, you play with what you have, right? And Kenwyn, for me, did an excellent job in my time there. He allowed certain players the freedom to play. Jovain scored more goals than he's ever scored in his life. Molino found space until, unfortunately, he got injured. And Paul Pest will tell you it was basically the same thing when we had him, So it is what it is. That 4-4 game against Mexico, I think we were 3-0 down at half, 3-1.
I think two goals down. We came back.
2 goals, yeah, 2 goals down. And I remember putting on Ball Pest. He made to make his debut, Cummings, and I said to him, I say, you play as close as possible to Kenwyn. right? Balls will fall for you and you will score. And he scored a double, you know? So, I mean, I never really understood the criticism.
Is that one of your favorite games, Coach? That 4-4, or was it one of those times you felt out of control as coach? How was the feeling on the bench?
You know what? I think the second half response was, it was remarkable, really, for lack of a better word. The way we responded, I mean, there were times we were being completely outplayed. We got in the dressing room. We made the changes. It brought us back. And when it brought us back is when the game started to lose control. You know what I mean? Because Mexico started to lose discipline. Right? And I think the key to it really was when Vela missed that easy chance. You know? And, you know, we started to have that belief, well, hold on a minute. Mexico are panicking at the back. They're really, really shaky at the back. And the rest was history.
Coach, in those moments when you identify that Mexico is losing control of the game, how did you manage balancing Trinidad and Tobago going forward, but at the same time knowing that Mexico, you came back into the game, a point was in your hands, but then you're seeing where you could get 3. But how do you balance or manage that with your players? Because I'm sure the players wanted to go gung-ho for the win. Were you concerned that we would attack? You would lose the balance in terms of attacking too much and not being able to keep our shape defensively?
No, because I think you have it a little bit mistaken, because we had the advantage, and then Mexico tied it up.
Didn't we score the equalizer?
The last equalizer came and stopped it.
So we were up 3-2.
Yeah.
Johansson scored the last goal to make it 4-4.
Yeah, we were up 3-2, and then what happened was they came back and Guardado scored a howitzer.
Right. Yeah, I remember that.
You know, he scored a remarkable goal. It's the second time that Mexico scored a spectacular goal on us, but and basically it threw the game into a situation where they went ahead 4-3, and then at that point you just kind of go for it, you know?
Right.
Because we had made, I think, 4 or 5 changes to the lineup for that game. So you know, we were fairly fresh, and I think the heartbreaker was the own goal, and really and truly we scored that header in the end, which was a sort of icing on the cake, really, for all the bottles being thrown at Chauvin.
I had the pleasure of coaching Johansson Marshall at Queen's Park. He's a remarkable young, well, not so young anymore, but he's a remarkable gentleman.
Yes, he is.
Yeah, his leadership is something I always look at and admire. Was he like that under your stewardship as well, or was he one of the quieter squad members?
Listen, I had a fantastic relationship with the players. I really, had problems with the players. Okay, we had those little incidents, but really and truly, the players in general, they trained hard. They worked hard. They did the right things. They really and truly, we had a discussion. We made a pact that it was going to be left to us to bring the people back to football in Trinidad and Tobago, right? And I have no complaint on the attitude of the players. They did their best under some very, very, very difficult circumstances. What Trinidad and Tobago players went through, you would not have had that with Canada players. They would not have stood for it.
Give us some examples there, Coach.
Well, a simple example are not being paid.
They like to be paid in Canada?
Not would not happen. You know, not being paid. You know, we show up at the airport. We don't have money for the bags to travel to go play the Gold Cup. You know, I had to pay the money myself, and Mr. Wallace, who was my manager, had to pay for the bags to go to the Gold Cup. And then when we get there, there's no meal ready for us. And I mean, what Trinidad and Tobago players endure to represent the country is beyond belief. And staff.
The Argentina trip, as you mentioned that, you know, tell us a bit about how that went, everything leading up to the game and the game itself. Was it a special one for you and the players?
Yeah, it was my second time against Argentina. And yeah, it was a special one, but we got to the airport and it was bedlam. Absolute bedlam. You know, they wanted some players to travel later, and I had, you know, big arguments as to who is going to play this game. You know?
You almost had Camona at centre forward, Coach.
It was crazy what was going on, and the group, whoever they were, that were to get priority to get on the plane until basically we had to say, listen, if all these players don't get on the plane or whatever, there's not going to be any game. You know, it was madness. And I think Brow and our physiotherapist Zach, they had to travel separately. They got there the next day, but it was absolute shambles, right? But we got there. We went to training. Training was very, very special. There was one moment, you know, you could see the look in the players' eyes where the stadium we were training at, the ghetto that surrounded was like, whoa, nothing you've seen. And then we had a crowd watching training, and I'll tell you what, you dare not miscontrol a ball or make a bad pass. You know, the people knew their football, that's for sure.
And Lionel Messi, tell us about your impressions and of him on that day.
Well, he'd be a hell of a player with a bit of confidence, wouldn't he? You know. You know, it was funny because I remember the opening parts of the game, and we literally couldn't hear each other. It was very loud. And you know, I'm watching Messi, and I remember walking back to the seats and talking to Baba and Derek, and Messi's first 4 actions in the game, every time he would do something, he would turn and watch the back line. Every time. So I think he played the first ball backward, he turned, he watched the back line. Then he picked up one, I think he threaded it through into Higuain, I believe it was, and he watched the back line. And then I realized he is studying us. What exactly do we do in each situation when he moves the ball? And then the 5th one he picked up and he just took off, you know, and I think was Highland brought him down, you know, and by that time he had figured us out. You know, he had figured out how much pressure he was going to have on him. Are we going to set traps? What are we, you know, are we going to man mark him? He had figured it out. But yeah, the game had some very special moments. And look, we were fortunate to come away with the scoreline that it was. Johanse had a very good game. Jan had an amazing game. And we could have even scored. Tula Tula's pet shot, he put it wide, you know. And he was having a good game himself, especially in possession, which is his strength, of course. But yeah, it was a special game to be playing against those guys. But the one incident that you really saw the difference that they could change gears was when we had the corner, and Di Maria just blindly played the ball down the line, and I think was it Lavezzi?
I think it was Lavezzi, yeah.
Yeah, Lavezzi was just flying down the left wing to pick up the pass in a nice little fishhook run. And when he squared it back on top of the box, guess who was there? It was Di Maria. You know, so he sprinted about 65, 70 yards to support that pass, you know, and it was like, whoa, you know, it was just so fast that in 3 passes, they were on top of our box. I think he kicked over the bar. Thank God.
Coach, the age-old debate, Messi, Maradona.
Oh, boy.
I personally have my bias towards Maradona, but
I think we all do, but
at our age, at least.
Yeah, we all do. The biggest difference is the longevity of Messi. You know, the consistency and longevity. It's impressive. Impressive. Mm-hmm. I mean, he's been at the top from the time he made his debut. You know, and that is very rare. We're seeing it with Cristiano as well, but that's very, very rare.
No, you saw Maradona in that exciting game against Nigeria, 1994 World Cup, and you spoke to him as well. Tell us about seeing him, meeting him. What impressions? What do you remember from that?
Well, Maradona is an enigma in the sense that he was such a nice man off the field, you know, and all the stories you hear about him or whatever. I'm not a person to judge. I simply watch Maradona as a footballer and as a coach, and the respect he showed me in the dressing room. You know, insisting that the players come and shake your hand, and the things that he did were always highly professional, you know, highly professional. As a footballer, he was, of course, one of the greatest of all time. I don't even want to get into that. That's not even a debate. In his time period, he was the greatest, you know. And it's just sad that he's no longer with us.
Coach, taking it back to the local scene, players like Maradona and Messi, those are very special players. Those are once in a lifetime players. But in terms of player development, all right, the development in Trinidad and Tobago seems to be hinged around competitions only, and predominantly the only development, and I'm saying that with air quotes, seems to be the SSFL.
Which is a competition.
Which is a competition, yeah. So, what do you think about development on a whole in Trinidad and Tobago at the youth level? Well, development, I should say. And the standard of the SSF, the idea of the SSFL being a developmental tool.
I think that's the biggest elephant in the room when you talk about Trinidad and Tobago football. Because the development of players, or lack of it, is the reason why we are in a certain situation at the moment. We have not progressed or built upon what we used to have. So look at the team in 2000, for example, that moved into 2006 with aging players and new players coming along. But you look at the Dwight York and the Naked and the Shaka and the Carlos Edwards and then Latapia, etc. They all came through school football. Now, school football is a competition.
Barney's laughing at their coach because he had a special role to play in Latapi's development.
Oh, yeah, I heard about that road. Yeah. I heard it was a highway, actually. But in all seriousness, you know, what the school does, what school football does, is it gives you recognition, it gives you an identity, it gives you a place to express yourself and be appreciated for it. And it could serve as the impetus to go further, to do more, to want more of that, which is basically lacking in any other part of football in Trinidad and Tobago. As somebody who grew up in an era of SFA, SFL, POSFL, etc., where there were huge crowds for basically what was community football, and huge crowds for North-South, you know, that sort of identity, that sort of recognition, that sort of stimulus to prove yourself in those environments is what could drive you to move even further. When they used to have the college football in Trinidad and Tobago, many of the young players would also be playing in the leagues. I remember Richard Chinnup, who was banned for 5 games, I think, for playing for Trinity because he played for, I think it was Maple at the time or somebody like that, right? So, you know, that sort of development is you cannot measure that really, and then of course the absence of in my time again in the time period that brought up so many players. They used to have North, South, East, West, Tobago youth teams, youth competition, etc., where we would actually be training and be preparing with some of the better players of our age group, first as San Fernando SFA versus SFL, you know, and then they would pick the South team, etc. I mean, all of that has disappeared from football, you know, and really and truly, we never built upon the structure. We just sort of, this is how it was always done, and we're just going to keep it that way.
You have any ideas from your time in here, Coach, in terms of, you know, what could improve our development at that stage?
Well, the first thing that I'm sure Barney may agree with is some sort of proper scouting system in all the regions, and then placing competent coaches that are interested in the development of the players from an individual standpoint, from a professional standpoint, etc., at a youth level, and gradually moving them into some sort of competitions, and then of course letting them go and play their school and stuff. But I'm talking about in the time periods that they're not in school, right? But I mean, you can't continue doing the same thing that we are doing now. I think we had a discussion, Lazana, when I was there, about doing an audit of the things that we do well technically, and how we can build on a lot of elements that are now missing in our game. I just go and I watch the primary school football when I was home. I watch all kind of football, school football, etc. And there are so many missing elements technically that are things that can be addressed.
Well, Barney could probably speak about what the boys do outside of the school season, because it's not as if the school has them whole year. They play games and all sorts of competitions, and they don't train that much.
The thing about it, Coach Hart, Trinidad has this belief and this saying, ever since I was small, which is just after the dinosaurs died, they've had this saying that the more you play, the better you get. But that has to be qualified. The more you play, the better you get when you have already learned the technique that you need to carry into the game. So you've learned the technique, and then the more you play, you can carry that technique and know which technique to use in which situation, and it becomes automatic. But we insist on just going from competition to competition here with no development in between. What do you think would be, well, I don't know how it exists in Canada, but is there some sort of defined period where the players, boys and girls, would be coached, and then there's a competition period at another point in time, or do they just play competitions all through the year as well?
Well, no. I mean, you have clubs, you have club organizations, you have provincial organizations, etc., etc. But really and truly, I think you've identified part of the problem, in that you can't just place yourself in competition mode, because once you do that, you have a couple of things happening. In the competition mode, you have coaches that are trying to make a name for themselves. And once they're trying to make a name for themselves, they're not going to allow players to take risks, to be inventive, to be imaginative, right? And then, of course, it's the same thing with the players, because the players now don't want to make a mistake. They're told that they must win. They must win these games, etc., etc. And it places them in a situation where they never want to try anything. I was at a primary school game right outside the little field by the stadium, and I heard a coach, this is primary school, telling a young player to go man-mark a very talented player on the opponent team. And he's telling everybody, I bet you that young boy not going to score a goal once I coach in here. You know what I mean? That to me makes absolutely no sense.
Coach, I know you were working with the youth teams as well, helping Derek King with the U20s and Sean Cooper with the U17s. Did you identify some players down the road who you hope to work with, who you felt would probably come in 2 or 3 years and freshen up your team?
Well, yeah, I had already started to bring them in. Akeem Garcia is one, and Hackshaw, and of course Garcia, Shannon Gomez, etc., etc. I think the young Julian is a very talented player. So there were a lot of players. Corbin was for me. I took him to the Gold Cup. I tried to stimulate him by putting him on the squad and bringing him there as a young player. But yeah, you have to. We also have to separate this discussion that we always hear in Trinidad and Tobago, is that we are so talented, but talent is only 15% of the equation. Mentality is bigger than talent, right? And we have to get the mentality right. And Sean, Mr. Cooper as a coach was fantastic in his discipline and in his demanding of what the players should do and how they should conduct themselves, etc. I think that was very, 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 very important, And it's the same thing with that group that we had in Jamaica. The only weakness of the group, of course, was proper preparation to enter a tournament of that magnitude.
Yeah, I've had the pleasure of working with Sean since 2014, and yeah, I have the greatest respect for that guy. He should listen to his assistant coach a little more, but other than that, I have the greatest respect for him.
How often have you heard that, Coach Hart? Listen to your assistant more. Okay.
Yeah, I think we have the resources for sure. We have the weather. We have everything. And I remember when I was at Clairefontaine, speaking with the guy, the head coach there, Claude Dessau, and he had actually traveled through the Caribbean. And one of the things that stuck with me is he said, if Trinidad, Jamaica, Haiti, Martinique, Guadeloupe, if they could ever get organized, they can be very, very big in terms of the production of players in football.
Yeah. Now, Coach, you took the team to successive quarterfinals in the Gold Cup, never done before. Top 15, CONCACAF, you were into the Hex. So you couldn't have been surprised when you found out, of course, you were no longer needed, I suppose. You couldn't have had any complaints. Coach, how can I put this? Were you surprised ever since that Ruby Tuesday meeting you all had? Were you surprised to see where Trinidad football ended up by, let's say 2019, the end of John Williams' term?
Not really.
Yeah.
Look, Lizana, they have a saying, if you think you're the smartest guy in the room, you're in the wrong room. And the thought process behind international football was, it was so archaic from some of the things that you were hearing and even some of the criticisms. You soon realize that they had no idea what they were talking about, but yet they wanted to direct your program for you.
Could you give me an example of some of those criticisms?
Well, there was a number of criticisms because on some occasions I was brought into some discussions and there was a lot of discussion that I didn't use enough local players, and they have so much local players that not being used on the national team, etc., and then when they got rid of me, basically only 2 new players were brought into the squad. Mm-hmm. Right? So the same players were there for 3 years after. Mm-hmm. Right? So all that criticism about me not using local, because basically when I had the team, it was 50-50 in terms of the split of local and foreign-based players. But then we had some good outings, and of course some of the local players got contracts abroad. So all of a sudden they've gone abroad. I shouldn't bring them back in. I mean, look at the team that played Mexico in September after the Gold Cup game, and we tied them 3-3. We had quite a few faces that weren't in the squad before, and I just couldn't understand some of the discussion about international football by some of the people involved, because really and truly they were talking out of their depth.
Coach, you wanna expand on that a little bit? I'm struggling to understand what comments were made concerning that related to international football that was, as you said, archaic.
And maybe you could explain.
Well, you had people Sorry?
No, maybe you can explain as well how the interaction went with the technical committee so we could kind of understand that a little bit better.
Well, I didn't have a technical committee that I reported to. You know, they had a technical committee. They are responsible for certain aspects of football, but not the national team.
Okay.
You know, not the senior team, but things started to leave our control, right? We had a way of working. How we bring the players in, etc., the timing and all of that, and then they took all of that away from us managing that. And I think Jovain had to fly from Seattle to New York, New York to Miami, Miami to Antigua, Antigua to Trinidad to play a World Cup qualifying game. You know, and it just became madness, really. What was going on behind the scenes, things that had never happened before, started to happen. Players, we were tracking them. All of a sudden, they missed their flights and all sorts of madness, because all those things were taken out of our hands.
Okay, and of course
then of course you are traveling, and you have people traveling with the group that are saying things like so and so should never be a national team player, etc., etc. Those sort of comments are unacceptable by somebody that is there largely as a representative of Trinidad and Tobago, the national team. That's not your decision to make, or even a discussion you should be having. And the players hear these things.
And of course, it was that training session when the president came in and offered you guys a game.
Well, that's been documented, But I mean, even those sort of situations, you understand. You take some games you don't want to take because maybe it makes good business sense, etc. And it's only an exhibition. That's fine. Those things are normal. If they come and explain it to you in those terms, most coaches will go ahead with that, regardless of the difficulty of it. But when you are in competition, everything should be done to make the players comfortable. The opposite was happening.
Did you have players coming to complain to you specifically about, whispers that you pointed out just now, people in the traveling party having negative things to say about them?
Yeah, the players hear it, and of course, word gets around, and you try to quell whatever is brewing and say, look, just kind of concentrate on your game. But more so, there was so many things happening. Players not being paid, and their flights were just were so complicated and made their life miserable that they're coming in not in the best frame of mind, right? So you have to you now have extra management that you have to entail.
Okay. And Coach, looking back at of course there were a lot of good moments as well. What would be your best moment or your proudest moment as a coach for Trinidad? Sorry.
Well, to be honest with you, all my time with the players, all the training, all the games were, for me, very special. Very, very special. I must say, I love the players. I worked well with them. I was not in love with them because you can't be, because you have to make some harsh decisions. But certainly the Gold Cup games and the exhibition games that we went and played, and that whole time period of feeling that we together, and when I say we together, the players who are big part of this, were bringing people back to football, was bringing the football back to the public. The feelings of how people expressed to me after the Gold Cup, and then when we went and we played Mexico in Real Salt Lake, and we were bringing back something that a lot of people had thought we had lost, et cetera, were all special moments. And yeah, of course, that you are going to go through some bad periods, but that's football. That's normal, So, I was happy for the experience.
How did you feel going out on the field before kickoff against America in Trinidad when you saw, over 20,000 people in the stands? So, you remember how you felt looking up in the stands?
Yeah, fantastic, and we had a feeling that we could play with anybody, at that time period. It even felt better that Jurgen seemed so on edge the entire game because he was feeling the pressure, and then of course the Guatemala game and qualifying for the Hex, which was we qualified for the Hex with one game in hand. And you knew, well, I knew anyway, and the staff knew, that going and play the US in a game that they still had to get some kind of result out of was not going to be easy for us, because we had just, it's like when a team wins the Champions League and have to play a game the next Saturday and they go and they lose, because the euphoria of the qualification and all of that, it's normal,
Excellent. Coach, I know you're not one to miss football, international football. You must have seen Trinidad, USA last Sunday. What are your thoughts on the game?
Well, what more is there to be said? The game didn't go well, and sometimes that sometimes that happens, right? You look at the game, you look at parts of the game, you see things that went wrong or whatever, and the game gets away from you. It happens even to big teams, but we didn't show any semblance of a team. We didn't show any semblance of organization without the ball or with the ball. The percentages of misplayed passes, etc. You're playing away from home. It's always going to be difficult, very, very difficult for you if you can't have some periods on the ball where you could at least rest. You're constantly under pressure.
Coach, looking at the game, did you think that the plan that we went into the game with was properly executed? And before that, do you think it was clear to the players the plan that they had to execute?
Well, I'm not on the inside, so it's difficult to say. I'm like you, I'm watching it on TV, and when the game first started, you saw the early press, and I thought, whoa, this is interesting, but then you press. It's early on. They play out of the press comfortably, because quite clearly a few players were missing their assignment. And you get the early goal on you. You would have thought, well, okay, let's drop into a sort of half press and give the US a bit of time to come forward and maybe then put them under some pressure, etc. But yeah, I think it became difficult because we really didn't look like, even when we won the ball, that we knew exactly what we were looking to do. So it's hard to say. We didn't look like we had a clear plan at all going into the game.
You mentioned the difference in coaching at club and international level. What gets you first? What was the first shock to the system, I think, when they moved from a club coach or international coach into a tournament? You think one, and is there one that you prefer more than the other in terms of the two assignments?
I like the club coaching because I'm with players almost daily. You know, I think, look, when you're international and you have to explain this clearly to the players. You know, you're going into an exhibition game, for example. Everybody wants to win the game. There's no footballer that goes into a game, or no coach that goes into the game thinking, you know what, I want to lose this one, right? So that's the first thing. The second thing is you have to say, this is what I want to get out of the game, right? Yes, you want to get a result, but the result must be part of the process, right? So you try to explain to the players, look, guys, this is what we're doing going into this game, because this is the building block that we need to move into the next exhibition game while we're moving towards the tournament. I don't know if that makes sense to you. But once the players understand, you know, this is what we're about, and then you look at whatever the opposition are that you're going to play against. So if you're going to play against Argentina, there are some givens that you don't even have to scout the damn team to know that it's going to happen. You're going to spend long periods without the ball. You better be organized, right? You better be in a situation where you take away certain crucial zones on the field. That their key players want to operate in, etc., right? Those are given elements. As I said, you don't even have to scout the opposition to know that. But that's usually how we approached things. And then, of course, you try to give each individual player a sort of role or responsibility within that. This is what I want from you in this game. So the player has some measurables.
Coach, before we wrap up, we can't allow you to leave without giving us a funny story. I'm going to be a little more specific, and I want to hear a funny story whilst coaching Trinidad and Tobago's team, something that happened or something that somebody said in some sort of context that you know, had you in stitches or had other people in stitches. We'd like to hear something that we really have never heard before.
Oh, wow. Trinidad and Tobago.
Sounds like you have a lot.
Well, probably have a lot more with Canada because we had some characters. But I think one that comes to mind. I'm not sure I could even tell this story the right way it should be told. So I'm gonna have to edit it.
Oh, try us, coach. Come on.
We could do the editing for you, though.
I think it was with Cummings and Ball Pest, and he had come to the team, and we were preparing to go to the Gold Cup, and we were in that hard training phase. We were really, I think we were doing 2 a day, and we were training relatively hard. And he told this story about he last night he dreamt a dog was chasing him, and he's running from the dog, and then all of a sudden he decides, you know what? I'm going to let this dog catch me and do whatever it is he wants to do with me, because I'm going to have to run for coach in a few hours. I think that had the team in absolute stitches. He was a funny guy. Yeah. He is a funny guy.
Could you imagine what the dog did to him, Coach?
I don't want to know. I don't want to know.
All right, Coach. Thanks a lot for spending the time with us here, the Barney and Burdie.
Thanks. Got it right for the he got it right for the first time. Barney and Burdie show.
We're gonna cut that. That's obviously a blooper. That's obviously a blooper, Coach. But oh, by the way, that day at Ruby Tuesdays, Coach, who paid the bill? Did they?
I didn't get any refreshments, that's for sure. I don't know who paid the bill.
That's a real kind of lifetime movie business. Because you know you always carry in a breakup. You carry them in a place, it's wide open, there are people there so they wouldn't make a scene, you know? So there was no screaming and jumping on the table or anything, I suppose.
No, we had a private room.
Private room, okay. Well, Coach, you know, sorry you're not with us anymore. It's a great time as national coach, but good to have you on the pod tonight.
Yes, thanks for having me, and I'd look out for some of your future podcasts.
Yeah, we're trying to get Burdie off the show. But one last thing before you go.
Sure.
2 years' time, Trinidad and Tobago comes asking for Stephen Hart back as national senior men's coach. What is the response?
You see you? I'll answer that question in 2 years' time.
You want to drive blindfolded like a coach, you know? You have to live on the
I'll answer that question in 2 years' time.
All right. God willing, I'll be able to ask it in person.
Yeah, okay.
Coach, it was nice talking to you as always. I wish you the best in your endeavors. I hope that you could defend the Coach of the Year title that you won again. And I'm hoping the best for Wanderers.
Yeah, thank you very much. Take care, guys.
This is Burdie. Our song.
Remember, we was trying to let you miss, so we didn't have a headphone. We was expecting you now, so we didn't have a headphone pay.
This is Burdie.
And this is Barney.
And this is not the... What the hell is it? Check.
The man wanted to be a rapper.
This is Burdie.
And this is Barney.
And this is... We gotta buy some sound effect or something. They're expensive.
Oops. Hello?
Yeah, we still here.
Oh, okay. I thought Barney pressed the wrong button.
How I get into... You're starting to sound like Shaka now.
Yeah, little man.
You're starting to sound like Shaka now. Alright, there you go.
Alright. This is Burdie.
This is Barney.
This is the Burdie and Barney show. I put some chocolate on that.
Why? Sorry. Why? Sorry, like you're not murder mystery so much.
I should have put some chocolate on that body.
Nah, don't do that.
Yeah. Alright, how do we follow up Barney? We had Chaka Islap, we had Stephen Hart. What do you think?
I think we need to get Russell Atterby to clear up this whole thing about me. So, Russell, if you're listening, we need to talk to you.
Hopefully Barney will get close to you this time. And we're out.
From two big elders, war amongst the stars. The why they think can't reach far. It's only war amongst the stars. They take it too far. Well, so when I jump or when I wave, yeah. People like it and the crowd give me the yo. People like it, to the people what they want. People like it, tell them all them. People like it, all the cool on in the bar. People like it, on the time you hear the track. People like it, push your hand up in the air. People like it, cause you know we gon' clear this year, cause